Hello and welcome to Why Do We Teach with me, Adenike Irby-Shabazz, Quashelle Brooks, Jalen Little, and Waylon Nimley. And today we're going to be talking about all about performance assessments and tasks and everything that comes along with it. So our main objectives we'll be hitting today is first and foremost, how to plan a performance assessment. Second, how to develop these performance tasks, how to audit performance tasks for quality, how to develop general rubrics, and to audit general rubrics for quality. And last but not least, use performance assessment formatively with students. And then like always, we'll always reflect on what we think of this material and try to apply it to our own classrooms or future classrooms. So I'm really excited for this episode and I hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you, Adenike, for that wonderful introduction. So yes, I do have objective one. Objective number one is to plan a performative assessment. So I want to discuss a little bit about what a performative assessment is. And it's pretty much a method requiring students to apply their knowledge and their skills to complete a real life experience or a non-traditional assessment, which can be done using labs or experiments or presentations or even projects and more hands-on activities. So if I had to plan a performative assessment, it would be for my students to engage in a scavenger hunt activity. This would consist of them having the prior notes from the lecture or giving them materials and resources with clear instructions to complete the scavenger hunt assessment. But also overall, it's for the students to be able to have a deeper understanding of what they learned and apply it to a hands-on activity with their peers. And yes, that is my objective number one.
I'm actually going to talk to you guys about how to develop these performance tasks. The main thing is making sure that the tasks are supposed to be showing instead of selecting. So with a lot of the assessments or things that we've been doing in the past have been a lot of select a response versus open answer response. So it's no longer just here's a question, find me an answer or give me an answer. Now it's, okay, I have this problem, I have this scenario, can you now come up with a way to fix the problem or a way to address the scenario? So there are three main steps. It's more so like, I guess almost three tasks. You can almost think about it instead of more like a step thing. So the first one is identifying your learning targets and ensuring that the performance task align. So if what we're talking about is just identifying things, then that's not a very good place to have a performance task, because it's just identifying, which is simple, true, false. I feel like that was more so fall along the lines of you would want a selected response or even an open response, because you're just identifying certain things. But if your objectives are more so like demonstrate XYZ, analyze XYZ, those would be better ones to use this performance task. So first, identify your learning target, ensuring that it actually works. You must know what knowledge and skills the students need to demonstrate, because you can't just give the task and not know what they actually need to demonstrate. And then the second thing is you need to know how the performance will be evaluated. So that is where the bulk of your planning is, because in my idea, this is like where you develop a rubric. This defines the criteria of success, and this is how the work will be then judged consistently, because we don't want subjective judging when it comes to students, because we all have students we don't like or students that will judge harder in certain scenarios just because you don't like how they might say something, or if they come off as a know-it-all or whatever your biases may be. But that is where you can find like I said, biases, and that's not fair to the student at all. It's not fair to their grade, it's not fair to you, and when it's time to give feedback, because it's going to sound like, well, I just didn't like how you said that, or I would have said it like this if I were you, but you're not them. Do they understand it or not? You know what I mean? Did they follow the rubric? Did they understand what you were asking them, and did they execute properly? And then the last one is the logistical consideration. So this is how long it's going to take. What materials do they need? Are the instructions easy to follow? Like these things must be feasible. So in this example that I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna run through each step. So when I was in high school and I took chemistry, we had an element project to where we all either chose or he was given, I can't remember. I just remember I had nickel, right? I had the element nickel. And what we had to do was we had to come up with a company that sold nickel to people, to some industry, and we had to essentially explain like why we are the best and why you would need nickel, right? So that was the learning target. The learning target was understanding the elemental properties and how those affect the characteristics of the element, right? So that was our learning target was, hey, here's an element. Can you take the elemental properties and tell me how those affect the characteristics and how then somebody could apply that to a certain industry, right? And then the second one, which is how the performance will be evaluated, he gave us a very clear rubric. This is what info needed to be included. How many protons, how many electrons, is it balanced, is it not balanced, is it a hard, is it solid, liquid, gas, things of that nature. And then what type of different media was needed. So did I need pictures of it? Did I need articles? Did I need just words or whatever? Did I need to create a logo? I did. It was like a whole shebang that we had to do. And then the last one was we needed to give us access. The last one is the logistical consideration. So he might have given us like 2-ish weeks and time to do it in class. But he also gave us access to the school printer so that we could print out anything that we needed for the project. Because he knew some people didn't have printers at home. I did not have a printer at home. So that was literally the only way to get it done. So he made sure that he gave us whatever materials we needed. I think we just had to buy our own board. But then after the trifold board, everything else he provided, which was awesome. So that was just an example of a performance task as well as how to develop one. The biggest thing is, for one, understand what they need to know. 2, how will you evaluate it, rubric, and then 3, logistical considerations. How are the students going to be able to get it done? Those are the 3 things to make sure that you consider when developing these things.
Hello, I'm Jalen, and I had objective number 3, which is auditing performance tasks for quality. So what I learned from chapter 7 about auditing performance tasks for quality is by checking to see if the task actually matches what you want the kids to learn and if it's fair and clear. Like when you look at whether or not if the instructions are simple so that the younger kids like K through 2 can understand it, and if it hits the learning goals and if there's not too much stuff that's too hard for them. So what that would look like for my PE class is that would be me having students doing a relay race where they would dribble basketball around cones and then pass it to a teammate and then shoot. So dribble, pass, and shoot. Trying to look at those 3 learning targets is if you know how to dribble, pass, and shoot. So I will audit it by asking, does this really show that they can dribble without losing control of the ball? Are the cones at the right distance for the first or second graders, first graders, or kindergartners? And is there a rubric that scores the control, speed, and their teamwork? So I would have to fix stuff so that it's doable and kind of challenging.
Hey everyone, my name is Jasuli Nimley, and this is podcast number 7, chapter 7, and I have learning targets number 4. And learning targets number 4 pretty much is saying develop general rubrics. So here's a clear example of a general rubric you could use for performance assessment. One thing, a general example of a general rubric is just making sure the skills is assessed in student presentation / performance, giving like a clear understanding of what they are, what is it that the teacher is looking for. So general rubric can be used for different assignments that measure the same skills rather than just one specific skills. So for example, you can measure assess skills, like for example basketball. You can put number 1 if they're at the beginning level, number 2 development, 3 proficient, and then 4 excellent. So grading them from a scale from 1 to 4. And then pretty much explaining what a beginner, if you were to get number 1, what that entails, what that looks like. So for example, if number one would be like showing little understanding. So like the assessment skills for, let's say, shooting. And number one would be like, does a student understand, shows little understanding of the different cues and the accuracy of form. And then number two could be like developing, they kind of understand, so like they show partial understanding and still making small mistakes with the forms. And then proficient could be show good understanding with minor errors or missing details. So like they know what they're doing, but they consistently, like when they shoot, they keep like consistently, like the form is correct, but they just missing shots, either like they're shooting too high or shooting too low, but they understand the concept, they understand the form. They just got to work on the power of how they are throwing the ball. And then number four, like excellent, to demonstrate complete understanding of what they're doing and they consistently getting the ball in the hoop. All right, and then that could be just checking the understanding of content, and you can go through organization. It could be another area that you can put it within the rubrics. And then if for the third part could be like, are they can they make at least 5 shots? Could be an area that you add within the skill assessment. One thing I would say, the reason why a general rubric can be very useful within PE, it shows that the different skill level of understanding. So this rubric is general because it can be used for multiple assignments. So you can use it for not just shooting, you can use it for dribbling, you can use it for passing. So like it's not just confined to one thing. You can pretty much use it for different skills within whatever sports that a PE teacher will be using. So keys feature for a good general rubric is a high quality rubric should be aligned with learning. Yes, objective number 5 is just pretty much to audit a general rubric for quality, and the main objective is to evaluate and monitor a level of efficiency for assessments or objectives. This tool is something that teachers can use to ensure targets are met and learning goals are aligned properly. So that is my input on objective number 5. Ms. Jalen, I know you got something you want to add as well.
Hey, so I also wanted to talk about the formative uses of performance tasks. Now, I love these talks about formatively because I love being able to check in with my students as to how much they understand. And I love in this course so far, we're learning the different tools that we can use to figure that out so that we can move forward and make sure that we're the best teachers possibly. So the use of a rubric to give feedback was an amazing thing that I never even thought about. And when I reflected on some of my teachers, or when I was reflecting on like how my teachers have used rubrics, I didn't even realize that sometimes they did do this. So it allowed for self-assessment possibly either. So let's say that we had a project, let's just go back to the elemental project. If that was the case, then if I had the rubric ahead, like as I'm developing my project, I was able to check each one and actually be able to assess, okay, am I going to get full credit on this one? Yeah, I should. I hit all those. Am I going to get full credit on this one? Yes, I should, because I hit all those. I have that information. I did that analysis, X, Y, Z. So I just love the idea of being able to, now in that case, that was more of summative because there was a grade at the end. Yeah, I just love the idea of that. What else did I write down? I wrote down rubrics are a critical role in formative assessments because they can clearly describe expectations. So like after we have done our question of the day and we're trying to figure out, okay, do you understand this? Are you able to do this XYZ? I'm using that a lot today, aren't I? If you're able to do XYZ, then how well are you able to do X? How well are you able to do Y? How well are you able to do Z? And really trying to get my students' brains turning that way. And then teachers can provide feedback at different stages of this process, allowing students to revise and improve their work. So I will talk, well, do I want to talk about that a little bit later? I will talk about that in my reflection.
Hi, I also had objective number 5, which is how to audit general rubrics for quality. So from the chapter, my little piece from I took away is auditing rubrics by reviewing if they're specific, fair, helpful for feedback, like making sure the criteria is observable and is able to do by the kids, and using levels that are kid-friendly language, so like using words like basic knowledge to great knowledge, and making sure it covers the whole task. Definitely using kid-friendly language so kids can understand it, and wanting the task and rubric to align with the standards and the goals that we have, or I have, to ensure even scoring. So in PE, we're doing basketball dribbling, so I would score from 1 to 4, 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. 4 being accuracy, like it hits the target every time. And then I would have another criteria on teamwork, so if they share the ball nicely, and another one on effort, to make sure like they're actually hitting the target and they're trying their best. So those are things that I took away from the reading about how to audit rubrics.
So this rubric is general because it can be used for multiple assignments. So you can use it for not just shooting, you can use it for dribbling, you can use it for passing. So like it's not just confined to one thing. You can pretty much use it for different skills within whatever sports that a PE teacher will be using. So keys feature for a good general rubric is a high quality rubric should be aligned with learning targets, describe clear levels of performance, use consistent criteria, and help students understand expectation. So there's no way you should say I didn't know, because it's right in there and it gives you a level from 1 to 4. If like clarity is what I'm trying to say. So I had objective number 6. Apart from number 4, I also had objective number 6, and as use performance assessment formatively. I normally use performance assessment during learning, not just at the end of my grading. And I realize it works a lot better for my students because they up and moving, and I'm checking their understanding as we stop in between lessons. My goal is to help students improve while they are still learning the skills. That's what I use, formative assessment. And using the rubric method really just shows like the strength of their understanding and where they are lacking, which works really well, like I said, with PE, because you can clearly see where their strengths are, if they understand or if they need more practice. One thing I will say that using performance assessment formatively, it gives feedbacks, and it allows students to know in there how well they are doing, versus waiting until next week to finish the lesson, or month down the road and then finding out, oh well, I haven't been doing good this whole time. For chapter 7, I had question number 1, and question number 1 pretty much say like one idea that I found convincing in this chapter that is the importance of using performance assessment formatively is not just for grading. Like I said, I use it to check my students' knowledge in between lessons.
I think this is useful because it allows students to improve their work during the learning process instead of only receiving a score at the end. That's one of the reasons why I honestly love teaching PE instead of just being a regular classroom, because there's so many ways to touch. To touch on base students' intelligence level or the clarity level to understand besides just giving grades. And then when teachers it also when teachers provide clear rubric example of a strong and weak work and descriptive feedback, students better understand what quality work looks like and how to improve, which is true. When using a rubric, it provides students with clarity understanding where the lack understanding of where they need to improve. Overall, I believe like these ideas are convincing because they focus on supporting students' learning and improvement rather than just measuring performance.
Yes, you definitely have some great points on your reflection. And my reflection is, how does this chapter align or challenge my own beliefs about teaching and learning? And I will say this chapter supports a lot about my teaching in general and my personal beliefs, because I would prefer a non-traditional assessment or non-traditional teaching method over the traditional method. And pretty much this allows learning engagement in a more hands-on method or way. And this idea of a performative assessment for students to use is way more, I want to say, resourceful and long-term memory for the students to maintain that energy that they learn in a more engaging, active activity, because they're using methods of engagement, communication. They're talking with their peers, they're completing a project, they're physically involved and thinking about the stuff that they're reading and processing. And that's pretty much giving them an overall goal of a deeper understanding of what they learned for today. Also, I would say when completing a test or a written assignment, yes, they do demonstrate what you learn, but I think long term, using that performative method, they maintain that information over time. And that is what I have to say for my reflection. Pass it off.
Okay, so my reflection was what I feel the most comfortable using. And to go back to the formative, I love the idea of using performance-based tasks as formative assessments. I feel like this allows the students to watch themselves grow, because you could, like, let's say we have a unit and I just give them a rubric. Okay, like with this part of the rubric, you should be able to, at this part of the unit, you should know this, or be able to do this. Like, that's how I broke down the unit. And then, and essentially, like, it broke down into maybe a whole project. I'm not sure. I have to do more planning if that's the case. But then with each part, we actively check to see if they understand. So let's say unit 1, just because I'm already talking about the elements, let's say first we look at the periodic table. The first part is, do you understand the different parts of the periodic table? The halogens versus the, I'm not chemistry, I'm biology. It's just, I'm already in that. But it's like, do you understand the different parts of the periodic table? Okay, from there, do you understand how they differ, and just keep going that way. And then after we finish a certain part of the unit, we can just go over, okay, let's look at this rubric, and let's say still the same elemental project, right? So, or it would probably have to be a different project, but still, it's like we're able to check with each one and look at the rubric. Do you understand this? Do you understand this? Do you understand this? And I just love the idea of that, because for one, it is allowing the students to conceptualize what they're learning as a bigger picture, and there are different segments that they have to understand before they understand the grand thing, right? So I just love the idea of being able to use that formatively, because sorry, my child is coughing, but he sounds fine. So I just love the idea of being able to do that for them. I'm already, like, my brain is already turning on like how I would do like different projects and what I would do if it would be like just at the end of every unit they have a paper that they're supposed to write or something. I don't know, probably a paper, just because that's easier for me, but also because these everybody needs to know how to write a decent paper. I think that is an art that's being lost by a lot of people. So yeah, that is what I think. I just love the idea of using this formatively, because like I said in the prior podcast with open responses, to allow the student to take the information and turn it into something tangible, like a written response, or in this case, like a project or something. I just feel like that forces them to think deeper about the material. And with that, it helps things stay more, it helps, for one, the connections, because with biology, everything is connected. Every unit kind of flows into the next and backwards and forwards, So for them to have a deeper understanding, it just helps them figure out everything else. And then also it shows them how to learn, because they learn how to take a fact and break it down into something smaller and something more tangible for their brain to understand, if that makes sense. I feel like this specifically is more so tied to how a student actually learns, because whether you're a visual learner or an audio learner or a mixture of both, or written, doesn't matter what type of learner you are, with something like this, it kind of hits all of the bases, So I'm kind of excited. Like, of all, I know I say this, I feel like I say this every week, of all the things, I'm really excited to use this. But yeah, that's it.
I had reflection number 4. So the part that makes me nervous or hesitant about putting into practice in teaching PE is developing scoring rubrics. So this makes me most hesitant because for the young kids, elementary, but mainly K through 2 or K through 1, because 2nd grade, they're okay, but kindergarten through 1st grade kind of struggles with the abstract criteria of, for example, using proper form, demonstrating control, or differentiating the levels of skill. So, for example, 1 through 4, 1 being developing and 4 being excellent. This feels very difficult to try since it's a fast-moving gym. This can lead for me to have inconsistent scoring, and it can be very confusing. Also, ensuring we have kid-friendly scoring methods and not overcomplicating the skill level. Like, how do I make this practical without losing my assessment accuracy? Like, that's the thing that's confusing me, and then I'm kind of scared to put it into practice. So that's all for me.
So I just want to say this was a great week for us as far as discussing our different viewpoints on this chapter and this podcast. So I'm going to close us out for today. So now it's time pretty much for our conclusion of this podcast for the week. And I think we all had, again, like some valid points made for this chapter, including different ideas and ways that we can demonstrate performative assessments in the classroom and performance assessments, and why they're great resources for not only just the teachers, but the students as well. And teachers can use a performance assessment to see where their students are struggling or doing well overall, and monitoring the process. Also, using performance assessments to allow students to successfully have a deeper understanding and process what they are learning, and do it in a fun, engaging way. And pretty much I want to say that's what this chapter overall demonstrates, different ideas of how performance assessment can be beneficial for everyone overall. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for sharing. And this is the end of our podcast, episode 7, Why Do We Teach?